Classification Eternus Omega Prime. Author Inquisitor Valerius Drast Ordo Xenos. Recipient Lord Inquisitor Xavier Christ Inner Conclave. Subject an eschatological threat assessment of the Xenos Majoris. Thought for the day. Hope is the first step on the road to disappointment. My Lord Inquisitor, let us dispense with the tired formalities of military appraisal. This is not a report. It is a eulogy etched in noospheric data shards for an empire that has been dead for 10,000 years. We merely inhabit the twitching corpse, mistaking its posthumous convulsions for signs of life. You have asked for a ranking, a neat categorization of the alien horrors that press in upon us from every conceivable angle of reality. A fool's errand if ever there was one. It presupposes that our extinction can be quantified, that the manner of our oblivion can be neatly filed and indexed before the final darkness falls. But I have served the Ordo for 3 standard centuries, and my duty compels me to obey, even as the futility of the act grinds my soul to dust. This document will not speak of victory. Victory is a delusion, a temporary dam built of bone and faith against an ocean of annihilation. Instead, it will speak of the nature of our end. First, you must understand our position not as masters of the galaxy, but as an anomaly. Humanity is the flickering candle in the heart of a hurricane that has raged for eternity. We are a brief, arrogant scream in a void that has known only the silent, grinding malice of stars and the things that dwell in their shadows. The Imperium is not a mighty star-spanning empire. It is a leper colony clinging to the holy light of the Astronomicon, a fortress built upon foundations of sand, besieged by a sea of unending hunger. Every world we claim is stolen property. Every breath we take is an affront to a universe that has already passed judgment upon us. We are the last vestiges of a failed experiment, and the galaxy's immune system is now marshalling to correct this biological error. Our existence is the aberration, and the Xenos in all their myriad forms are the cure. To speak of them then is not to speak of rivals or competitors. It is to speak of finality. It is to chronicle the different flavors of doom that await us. My predecessors in the Ordo Xenos were content to measure threats in terms of fleet strength, logistical capacity, and territorial gains. Such metrics are laughably insufficient. They are the calculations of children playing with toy soldiers in the shadow of a tidal wave. To truly comprehend the abyss, we must devise new, more terrible yardsticks. The threat a species poses is not in its arms, but in the shape of the void it leaves behind. Therefore, I have abandoned the Liber Bellorum's crude calculus. My assessment is based upon a new quadrivium of damnation, a more honest measure of the end times. My first metric is existential threat. This is the purest, most uncomplicated form of destruction. It is the measure of a species' ultimate goal and capability to bring about the complete and total erasure of mankind. This is not about conquest, subjugation, or assimilation. It is about extermination on a conceptual level. It is the desire to not only shatter our worlds and butcher our peoples, but to scour our very memory from the annals of the galaxy, to leave behind a silence so profound that it is as if we never were. It is the threat of utter non-existence, the final silent scream, swallowed by the void. The second is corrupting influence. Perhaps more insidious than physical annihilation is the threat of spiritual and biological decay. This metric assesses a Xenos' ability to turn us against ourselves. It is the power to sow dissent, to whisper heresies that take root in the fertile soil of human desperation. It is the capacity to twist our flesh, to rewrite our genetic code, to transform the very essence of what it means to be human into a parody, a slave, a vessel for something utterly alien. This is not the clean death of the bolter shell, but the slow, agonizing rot from within. It is the horror of looking in the mirror and seeing not the face of a loyal servant of the Emperor, but the mask of the alien staring back. Third, I shall measure them by their incomprehensibility. We can fight an enemy we understand. We can hate a foe whose motives, however vile, are recognizable. But what of the things whose existence is a mockery of natural law, whose goals are so utterly alien that to even contemplate them is to invite madness? This metric quantifies the cosmic horror of a species. It is the degree to which their nature, their technology, and their ultimate purpose lie outside the fragile framework of human reason. They are not armies. They are paradoxes, living refutations of the ordered universe the Imperial Creed promises us. To fight them is not to wage war, but to battle against insanity itself. They are the things that prove humanity is not the center of the universe, but a speck of dust adrift in a cosmos of gibbering, malevolent gods. Finally, there is the simple, brutal arithmetic of absolute scale. A viper may be deadly, but a swarm of locusts can devour a world. This is the measure of a species' sheer, overwhelming presence in the galaxy. It is their numbers, their resources, their inexhaustible capacity to wage eternal war. It is the recognition that even if we win 1,000 battles, they need only win one. This metric is the slow, grinding erosion of our strength, the endless war of attrition that we, with our finite lives and fragile supply lines, can never truly win. It is the threat of being drowned, buried, and ultimately forgotten beneath an endless tide of bodies. Using these 4 terrible criteria, I will now begin my catalogue of the damned. Let us not delude ourselves that this is an act of strategy. It is an act of witness. It is the final confession of a dying species, a testament to the horrors that will pick our bones clean. Let the litany of our doom commence. We begin then with the child race, the Tau. It is tempting to dismiss them, my lord. A fledgling empire, a mere handful of worlds clustered on the eastern fringe, a blink in the eye of galactic history. Their fleets are a nuisance, their pulse rifles a novelty for the Adeptus Mechanicus to dissect. To rank them alongside the ancient terrors that haunt our every waking moment seems on the surface to be an act of gross miscalculation. This is a common and fatal mistake. The Tau represent one of the most pernicious threats to the Imperium precisely because their weapon is not a gun, but an idea. Their philosophy, the Tauva, the greater good, is a mimetic contagion of the highest order. It is a poison sweetened to be palatable to the broken and the desperate. Consider the state of the average imperial world, a life of grinding servitude, of back-breaking labor in smog-choked manufactorums, of unwavering obedience to a distant and often cruel authority, with the only promise of release being death in the Emperor's name. Into this despair, the Tau whisper their lies. They do not speak of dark gods or forbidden power. They speak of cooperation, of purpose, of a society where every individual contributes and is valued. They offer advanced technology, not as a holy relic to be venerated, but as a tool to ease suffering. They offer a place for all human included within their expanding union. They do not kill with the bolter. They kill with hope. This hope is a cancer that rots a world's faith from the inside out, transforming loyal imperial citizens into willing traitors before a single fire warrior has set foot on their planet. It is a more effective fifth column than any Genestealer cult, for it does not hide in the shadows. It preaches its heresy in the open squares. And what of the architects of this perfect harmonious society? The ethereals, the Aon. Here lies the true malignancy of the Tau. We are expected to believe that an entire rapidly evolving species, comprised of distinct castes with differing biological imperatives, has willingly and uniformly submitted to the absolute authority of a new and mysterious ruling class. This is a biological and sociological impossibility. Harmony on such a scale does not occur in nature. It is imposed. My agents within the Calixis sector have provided fragmented, often contradictory reports on the ethereal's influence. Some speak of a complex pheromonal control, an olfactory signal that enforces loyalty and suppresses dissent. Others hint at a latent unified psychic ability, a subtle but unbreakable mental conditioning that renders the very concept of rebellion unthinkable to the other castes. Is the greater good a choice, or is it the most sophisticated form of slavery in the galaxy? Imagine, my lord, a cage with no bars, a chain that cannot be seen. The tall warrior who dies with the name of the Tauva on his lips does not believe he is a slave. He believes he is a martyr for a noble cause. This is the genius of their corruption. They have engineered a society that polices itself, that embraces its own subjugation as the highest form of enlightenment. They are building an empire not on the bedrock of fear, as we do, but on a foundation of absolute, chemically induced or psychically enforced compliance. Their threat is not that they will conquer us in battle, but that they will offer our citizens a better life and that our citizens in their weakness will accept. They are a mirror held up to the Imperium's ugliest truths, and for that alone they must be purged with uncompromising fire. From the naive child we turn to the wizened corpse, the Eldari of the craft worlds. They glide through the galaxy like ghosts, remnants of an empire so decadent it fucked a new god into existence. We are taught to see them as a cautionary tale, a civilization brought low by its own hubris. This is a comforting lie. The truth is that their empire never truly died. It merely contracted, festering in its mobile homes of wraithbone, and its arrogance has not diminished one iota. Many within the Imperium, even some within our own holy ordos, speak of them as potential allies, as a dying people who share a common enemy in the great devourer and the arch-traitor. This line of thinking is a venomous heresy. To treat with the Eldari is to play a game of regicide against a master who sees 1,000 moves ahead and views your king as nothing more than a disposable pawn. Their entire strategy is predicated upon this chillingly simple principle: 1 billion human lives are a worthy sacrifice for a single Eldari soul. Their farseers, those lauded mystics, are not prophets. They are the most prolific mass murderers in galactic history. They gaze into the skeins of fate, the tangled web of futures, and they do not seek the optimal path for galactic stability. They seek only the path that extends the miserable existence of their own race by another day, another hour. The cost is irrelevant. I have personally presided over the exterminatus of the hive world Cygnus X1. It had been overrun by the orcs of warlord Gutreka. A tragic but unremarkable event. It was only during the final data purges that we found the anomaly a psychic resonance signature impossibly faint, matching that of the Ulthwé craft world dated mere weeks before the first orc spores were detected. The truth was laid bare. The entire Wagj, the loss of 80 million Imperial citizens, the mobilization of 3 Space Marine chapters, and a full Imperial Guard regiment was not a random occurrence. It was an assassination. The Farseers of Ulthwé foresaw a future, one of 1 trillion possibilities, where a chaos cult would one day rise on Cygnus X1 and centuries hence threaten their precious craft world. Their solution was not to warn us, not to aid us in rooting out the cult, but to redirect a greenskin horde to scour the planet clean. They used the orcs as a cleansing fire, and humanity as the kindling. This is the core of their being. They are defined not by honor or wisdom, but by a species-wide, all-consuming selfishness. Their war is not our war. They do not fight to preserve life or to defeat chaos for the good of all. They fight a desperate rearguard action against the damnation they richly deserve. Every action they take, every alliance they forge, every piece of cryptic advice they offer is solely to delay the moment when their souls are devoured by Slaanesh. She who thirsts is the god they birthed in a final galaxy-spanning orgy of sensation, and now they spend their every waking moment fleeing the divine consequences of their sins. They are cosmic debtors, and they have designated humanity as their currency. When they fight alongside our forces against a Tyranid splinter fleet, it is only to ensure the hive mind is steered towards an imperial sector instead of their own. When they provide the location of a Necron tomb, It is so that the Imperial Guard can bear the brunt of the awakening, softening the enemy for their own later convenience. They are not allies. They are puppeteers, and their stage is the whole of the galaxy. They are the most dangerous of foes because they wear the mask of a friend, whispering secrets that lead our armies into glorious, pointless deaths. Trusting the Eldari is like trusting a starving man not to eat your last ration. Their survival is contingent upon our suffering, and they have had millennia to perfect the art of ensuring we suffer beautifully for their benefit. If the Eldari are a scalpel wielded with surgical and malevolent precision, then the Orcs are a sledgehammer. A continent-sized, filth-encrusted, perpetually swinging sledgehammer. It is the great failing of the Departamento Munitorum to classify the Greenskins as an army. They are not an army. They are a fungal infection. They are a self-perpetuating pandemic of violence, a biological weapon unleashed upon the galaxy eons ago by a forgotten hand for a war that has long since ended. The weapon, however, endures. To fight the Orcs is not to wage war, but to engage in pest control on a galactic scale, and the pest is winning. One must first understand their biology to grasp the utter hopelessness of our struggle against them. The Orc is less an animal, and more an ambulatory fungus, a horrifying symbiosis of flesh and flora. They do not require supply lines in any conventional sense. They do not need to cultivate crops or rear livestock. Their very existence pollutes the biosphere of a world, transforming it into a breeding ground for their kind. An Orc does not truly die. When one of these brutes is slain, its body releases a cloud of microscopic spores. These spores embed themselves in the soil, in the cracks of shattered ferrocrete, in the very corpses of our guardsmen. From these spores, a new and complete Orcoid ecosystem will arise. First the Squigs, then the Gretchen, and finally the Orcs themselves. We have been diligently planting our own doom on every battlefield where we claim victory. Every Orc we kill is a seed sown for a future harvest of violence. A planet that has suffered a significant Orc invasion is never truly free. It is merely fallow. The spores can lie dormant for decades, even centuries, waiting for the right conditions to sprout anew. There is no final victory against them, only a temporary abatement of the green tide. This biological horror is compounded by an even greater, more offensive truth. Their power is born of ignorance. The collective psychic gestalt of the Orcs, the raw primal force known as the Weiji, is a blunt instrument that bludgeons reality itself into submission. Their technology, a haphazard collection of scrap metal and crude welding, should not function. A def gun should explode. A stomper should collapse under its own weight. A fighter bomber should fall out of the sky. And yet they work. They work because the Orcs gathered in sufficient numbers collectively believe they will work. Their shared psychic bellow smooths over the cracks in physical law, forcing the universe to conform to their simple, violent expectations. We have confirmed it in sanctioned vivisections by the Magos biologies. Their vehicles painted red do in fact achieve a measurably higher velocity. There is no scientific principle behind this. It is a brute force psychic assertion, a dogma of color enforced upon the material realm. This is the ultimate cosmic joke, the universe's savage laugh at our quest for order and reason. That the most profound and reality-altering psychic power in the galaxy is wielded not by enlightened mystics or cunning sorcerers, but by a race of hooligans who have weaponized the power of being too stupid to know that what they are doing is impossible. They are a mockery of the Emperor's divine order, a festering wound in the side of logic itself. From this understanding of their biology and their profane metaphysics, we arrive at a singular soul-crushing conclusion. The Orcs are a permanent and ineradicable feature of this galaxy. They cannot be exterminated. To sterilize every world they have ever touched, to hunt down every last spore, would be a task far beyond the capabilities of the entire Imperium, even in its glory days. They are a force of nature, as fundamental as gravity or entropy. They are the embodiment of war itself, and in a galaxy where there is only war, they are the native species. We are merely the interlopers. They will always exist because conflict will always exist. They are the universe's ultimate tautology. For millennia, we took some comfort in their disunity. Their endless tribal squabbles and innate need to fight the nearest opponent, even if it was another orc, kept them from ever uniting into a truly unstoppable force. That comfort has been stripped from us. We are now facing the culmination of their evolution, Gazkul Mag Uruk Thraka. Do not mistake him for a simple war boss, my lord. He is something new, something far more dangerous. He is a prophet. Through some cruel cosmic accident, a bolter shell to the skull that should have killed him, but instead seemingly reorganized his fungal brain, Gazkul has become a focal point, a conductor for the ways on a scale not seen since the dark days of Ulanor. He is not merely a conqueror, he is a unifier. He has a vision, a brutish and singular purpose to drown the galaxy in one glorious eternal war. He has turned the orcs' greatest weakness, their fractiousness, into a strength, launching simultaneous invasions, directing their migrations, and giving their endless violence a terrifying semblance of strategy. He is the avatar of their savage gods Gork and Mork, and his bellow is uniting the scattered green tide into a tsunami that threatens to break against the very walls of holy terror. He is the proof that our enemy is not a static brute, but a living, evolving plague that is finally learning to think. And this leads me to the most heretical thought of all, a thought I would have any lesser man executed for even daring to contemplate. What is the final state of the galaxy? What happens when the last human dies, when the Golden Throne finally fails, when the Eldar have faded into memory, and the Necron dynasties fall silent once more? The orcs will remain. They are the ultimate inheritors of the Ashes. Their needs are simple: a foe to fight, a weapon, to swing a battle to be won. When all other races have been extinguished, they will simply turn on one another joyfully and without end. Their existence is not a means to an end. The means is the end. They will wage war for the sake of war, battling over the rubble of our fallen cities and the bones of our forgotten heroes. The final sound in the universe will not be a prayer or a lament. It will be the green-skinned laughter of a monster who has won the ultimate victory simply by outlasting everyone else. They are not a threat to the natural order of the galaxy. They are the natural order. We are the interruption. Their eternal warg is the mean to which all things will eventually revert. My lord, the threats I have outlined thus far are in their own terrible ways understandable. They are products of this galaxy. They have histories, however crude, and motives, however selfish. They wage war for territory, for ideology, for the sheer thrill of battle. We can at least on a conceptual level comprehend them. Now we must leave the realm of the comprehensible behind. We now turn our gaze to the outer dark, to the silent intergalactic void. We turn to the Tyranids, and for the first time, we face a foe that does not hate us, does not wish to rule us, and does not even recognize us as a competing civilization. We are to this entity merely food. The Tyranids are not a species. They are not an empire of myriad individuals. To use such terms is to fundamentally misunderstand the nature of the horror. The Tyranid is a singular being, a composite predator on a galactic scale, whose constituent parts are the billions of monstrous organisms that form its hive fleets. The true entity is the hive mind, a consciousness of unimaginable power and alien intellect that stretches across the silent darkness between galaxies. The creatures we fight, the numberless swarms that crash against our battle lines, are not its soldiers. They are its claws, its teeth, its searching, grasping tendrils. You cannot negotiate with a hand. You cannot reason with a fang. You can only be torn apart and consumed. Their arrival in a system is not heralded by Vox transmissions or fleet sightings. The first sign is silence. A psychic silence, profound and absolute. This phenomenon, which we have named the shadow in the warp, is the projection of the hive mind's immense psychic presence, and it is a weapon of terror more potent than any cannonade. Across an entire sector, the guiding light of the Astronomicon is snuffed out, replaced by a suffocating darkness. The choirs of the astropaths fall silent, their telepathic screams echoing for a few brief, agonizing moments before their minds are comprehensively shredded. Navigators, their third eyes seared open by the sheer wrongness in the void, go violently insane, often slaughtering their bridge crews before taking their own lives. All contact with the wider Imperium is severed. A world is rendered deaf, dumb, and blind. An impenetrable wall of psychic dread descends, isolating the target system and leaving its populace to stew in a broth of utter hopelessness and terror. This is a deliberate act of psychological warfare. The prey is tenderized by fear long before the first feeder organism makes planetfall. It is the silence of the abattoir the moment before the bolt gun fires. Then comes the fleet. Even calling it a fleet is a misnomer. It is an ecosystem. Vast bioships, living mountains of chitin and flesh, drift into the system. There forms a blasphemy against both nature and starship design. These are not vessels carrying troops. They are the primary organisms, the central nerve clusters and reproductive hubs of the swarm. From their pulsating orifices, they birth the endless tide of lesser beasts. Every single creature, from the hulking carnifex that can tear a battle tank in half to the smallest scuttling ripper that swarms over the fallen, is a temporary appendage of the hive mind. They possess no will of their own, no sense of self-preservation, no fear. They are cells in a vast predatory body directed by a single, unwavering imperative: consume. They will march into the fire of 100 heavy bolters without hesitation, not out of bravery, but because the concept of self is utterly alien to them. They are a wave of biological machinery as unthinking and unstoppable as a tsunami, and their only purpose is to break the shore of our defenses and drag every living thing back into the all-consuming sea. The true horror of the Tyrannid is not its size, nor its ferocity, nor even its alien intellect. It is this the Tyrannid learns. It adapts, it evolves, and it does so at a rate that defies all natural law. Every battle we fight against them, every victory we claw from the jaws of defeat is nothing more than a field test for the hive mind. We are providing the data free of charge for the perfection of our own extinction. We are locked in an evolutionary arms race where every weapon we deploy becomes a blueprint for our enemy's next generation. To fight the Tyrannid is to teach it how to kill you more efficiently. Consider the process. My lord for it is a masterclass in biological warfare. When a hive fleet makes planetfall, the first waves of organisms are often probes near suicidal charges of gaunts and gargoyles, designed not to win, but to test our defenses. They register the caliber of our lasguns, the explosive yield of our ordnance, the thickness of our tank armor. As these creatures are slain, their biomass is reabsorbed by the swarm, and with it a wealth of genetic and combat data. This information is processed by the hive mind in real time. Within hours, sometimes minutes, new bioforms are spawned from the pulsating bellies of the Norn queens, each one specifically tailored to overcome the challenges of the last wave. Did our Lehman Russ tanks hold the line against the Hormagaunt tide? The next assault will be spearheaded by carnifexes, whose frontal carapaces have been thickened and angled, whose scything talons have been laced with metallic carbides capable of shearing through plasteel. Did our Sentinels' autocannons prove effective against their flying broods? The next wave of gargoyles will have denser hides, or will fly in erratic patterns designed to confuse our targeting augurs. We have seen Tyrannid warriors spawned with chameleonic skin to counter Imperial Guard snipers and Tyrant Guard with silicate-hardened shells to withstand meltagun blasts. We are not fighting an army. We are fighting a living, breathing weapons laboratory that uses our soldiers as the test subjects. The very act of resistance accelerates our doom. The more effectively we fight, the faster they learn, and the deadlier they become. The heroes of the Imperium, our noble space marines and stoic guardsmen, are unwittingly acting as instructors in the hive mind's Academy of War. And what is the final lesson? What is the purpose of this horrifying adaptive slaughter? It is consumption, total and absolute. When the planet's defenders have been broken and their biomass has been added to the swarm, the final stage begins. It is not an occupation, it is a harvest. Great capillary towers, fleshy and obscene, are driven deep into the planet's crust, siphoning its geothermal energy and molten core. Swarms of rippers, the most basic of feeder organisms, scour the surface, devouring everything, the fallen, the fauna, the flora, down to the last blade of grass and the last microbe in the soil. The great bioships lower themselves into the atmosphere, their ventral tubes plunging into the oceans and draining them dry. The very air is inhaled, broken down, and absorbed. In a matter of days, a vibrant living world is reduced to a barren, airless rock, scoured clean of all life and all evidence that life had ever existed. This is the tyrannid's ultimate goal. It is not conquest, for it has no concept of empire. It is not destruction for its own sake, for it has no concept of malice. It is the cold industrial process of converting a galaxy's worth of living matter into more tyrannid. The final state of a system successfully invaded by the hive fleet is a profound and sterile silence, a biological void. This is the true nature of their existential threat. They do not just seek to end us, but to erase the very potential for life itself, leaving a trail of silent, dead worlds in their wake as they move on to the next galactic meal. If the hive fleet is the hammer that shatters worlds, then the Genestealer cult is the cancer that rots them from within. It is the fifth column in its most horrifying form, an insidious corruption that turns our most valuable asset, our own people, into the vanguard of our destruction. This, my lord, is perhaps the most terrifying front in the war against the Great Devourer, for the enemy is not a monster from the void, but your neighbor, your comrade in the guard, even your own kin. It is a war that forces us to point our bolters at human faces, and in doing so, to question the very fabric of our society. It begins with a single organism, a lone Genestealer, a vanguard bioform delivered to a target world by means unknown. It finds a host in the dark places of our society, an underhive sump, a remote mining colony, the forgotten hold of a freighter. There it bestows its kiss, a horrific act of genetic violation, via a needle-tongued ovipositor. The victim is not killed, they are converted. Their genetic code is rewritten, and their mind is enthralled, filled with a fanatical reverence for their alien violator. This is the seed of the cult. The victim becomes the first of a new and terrible lineage. Their children, the first generation of hybrids, are monstrous and feral. But with each subsequent generation, the alien taint is diluted, masked. The second generation can pass for a mutant. The third can hide its extra limb beneath a workman's robes. By the fourth generation, they are all but indistinguishable from true humans. They are born with a latent psychic loyalty to the cult and a genetic imperative to breed, to spread their tainted bloodline throughout the unsuspecting populace. They take jobs, they raise families, they infiltrate every stratum of the planet's society, from the lowliest sewer scrapers to the most trusted aides of the planetary nobility. At the heart of this sprawling subterranean family, the original Genestealer grows old and powerful, becoming a bloated psychic totem known as the Patriarch, the living god of the cult. For decades, even centuries, they grow in the shadows, a hidden society, waiting for a silent signal. They are a perfectly patient insurgency. And then the day comes. As the shadow in the warp descends, isolating the world in a shroud of terror, they receive the psychic summons of their masters. This is their day of ascension, the holy moment they have been preparing for. And it is a planetary-scale act of treason. Across the world, the cultists rise as one. The miner in the Prometheum refinery overloads the core. The dock worker on the orbital plate sabotages the defense lasers. The soldier in the planetary defense force turns his laser gun on his own commander. The communications officer jams all astropathic signals with a final garbled prayer to her star saviors. From the underhives and the mine shafts, a disciplined army of hybrids and enthralled humans emerges, seizing armories, assassinating loyalists, and spreading chaos. They fight with the ecstatic fervor of religious zealots, convinced that the approaching hive fleet is their divine salvation. They are not rioters, they are a coordinated military force welcoming their own doom. And here is the ultimate cruelty of the hive mind. The cultists believe the Star Saviors have come to elevate them, to merge with them in a holy union. They are mistaken. When the tyrannid swarm finally descends upon the crippled world, it does not distinguish between the loyal and the traitor. The biomass of the faithful is just as nutritious as the biomass of the defiant. The cultists who have betrayed their species and worshipped monsters as gods are swept up and consumed with all the rest. Their entire existence, their generations of faith and struggle, was nothing more than a biological softening agent, a self-destruct mechanism engineered by the hive mind to make the planet easier to digest. We have spoken of the teeming biological threats, the savage and the ravenous. Now, my lord, we must turn to its antithesis. We turn from the horror of unrestrained life to the horror of perfect eternal death. We turn to the Necrons. To call them machines is a gross oversimplification, a comforting lie we tell ourselves to place them within a recognizable category. They are not mindless automata, no more than an Astartes dreadnought is a simple cogitator. They are the echoes of a soul, the ghosts of a species that committed suicide 60 million years ago to win a war. And within their silent metallic shells resides a cold and bitter hatred for all the chaotic, messy, vibrant life that has inherited their galaxy. To understand the Necron, you must understand the Necron tier. From what fragmented xenoglyphs and prescribed data tomes we have recovered, they were a miserable race, born on a death world orbiting a cruel radioactive star. Their lives were painfully short, their bodies riddled with cancers. They looked out upon the galaxy and saw the Old Ones ancient, powerful, and masters of creation, and they were consumed by a bitter, jealous rage. This rage led them to the ultimate folly. They found new gods or beings that passed for them, the Cetan star vampires of pure energy, and they made a pact. The Cetan promised them victory against their ancient enemies and a cure for their mortal frailty, immortality. The Necronter, desperate and full of hate, accepted. The price was their souls. In a process they called biotransference, the entire species, every man, woman, and child submitted themselves to the arcane bioforges. Their weak flesh was vaporized, and their consciousness, their very essence, was decanted and permanently fused into bodies of living metal. They were granted their immortality. They became the deathless soldiers they so desired. And in that moment, the Necron tier ceased to exist. Their culture, their art, their capacity for joy or despair, all of it was scoured away, leaving only cold logic, ancient duty, and a bottomless well of regret. They won their war. They shattered the empire of the Old Ones and even turned on their deceitful gods, breaking them into shards to be used as eternal prisoners and weapons. And when the war in heaven was over, they looked out upon a galaxy that was no longer theirs, a galaxy teeming with the nascent, chaotic life that the Old Ones had seeded. Tired from an ancient and terrible war, and seeing these new races as little more than ephemeral vermin, they made a decision. Under the command of their last silent king, Zarek, the entire Necron Empire retreated to its pre-prepared Tomb World's planets, hollowed out into vast, non-Euclidean stasis crypts. There they initiated the Great Sleep, sealing themselves away for 60 million years to wait for the galactic stage to clear itself of the noisy insects that now infested it. This is the most terrifying truth, my lord. We are those insects, For 10,000 years, the Imperium has expanded, colonized, and built. We have raised hive cities on worlds we thought were barren, established agri-worlds on planets we deemed fallow, and erected holy shrines on what we believed to be untouched ground. We have been living in a graveyard. Miles beneath the feet of our citizens, beneath the foundations of our basilicas and our fortresses, legions beyond counting lie dreaming their cold metallic dreams. Every deep-core mining operation, every exploratory dig by the Adeptus Mechanicus, every seismic event risks tripping the silent reanimation protocols. We are not the masters of this galaxy. We are squatters in a king's tomb, and the king is beginning to stir. The threat is not coming from across the void. It has been beneath our feet the entire time. The ultimate threat of the Necrons, my lord, is not found in the lethality of their weapons or the resilience of their bodies. It is in their vision for the future. It is in the kind of galaxy they wish to create upon the ashes of our own. It is a vision of perfect, unending, silent order. It is the peace of the tomb writ large across the stars. Let me paint you a picture drawn from a pict capture recovered from the memory banks of a dying Margos on the Explorator world of designation Sigma Triton 4. The Adeptus Mechanicus team, in their blind pursuit of archaeotech, had unearthed a vast, perfectly geometric catacomb. They marveled at its silence, its flawless construction. They believed they had found a temple to the Omnissiah. Then the ancient seals broke. A faint green light began to pulse from the sarcophagi lining the walls. There was no alarm, no war cry. There was only a sudden, profound silence on the Vox. The Pict feed showed the Mechanicus Scitari raising their weapons as the first legions of Necron warriors stepped from their crypts. The slaughter that followed was not a battle. It was a sterilization. The Necrons moved with an unhurried, implacable grace. Every shot from their gorse flayers was perfectly aimed. Every movement was calculated for maximum efficiency. There was no anger in their actions, no hatred, no triumph. They were simply cleansing their home of an infestation, as one might exterminate vermin from a long, unoccupied room. They killed with the cold, passionless precision of a surgical instrument, and that, my lord, is a horror our species is not equipped to understand. This is their ultimate goal, to impose that same sterile quiet upon the entire galaxy. To the Necrons, all organic life is a disease. We are a chaotic, illogical, noisy plague. Our emotions, our ambitions, our faith, our very process of birth, life, and decay are flaws in a system that craves a perfect, static state. They do not wish to conquer us in the way a human emperor would. They wish to correct us, to erase the fundamental error of biological existence. Their victory would not result in a galaxy of slaves or subjects. It would be a galaxy returned to its factory settings, a silent, perfectly ordered machine. Stars would be extinguished or rekindled to form pleasing, symmetrical constellations. Planets would be stripped of their messy biospheres and clad in silent metal. Every mote of dust would be in its designated place. It would be a universe without pain, without fear, without hope, without love. A universe without life. An eternal, unchanging monument to nothing. The hunger of the Tyrannid is a terrifying, primal thing, but it is at least an act of life, however perverse. The Necrons offer a more profound oblivion. They offer the absolute zero of existence, a future of perfect, unending silence. They are the ultimate agents of entropy, and their triumph would not be the end of the Imperium of man, but the end of the very concept of a future. My lord, we have surveyed the great galaxy-spanning threats, the all-consuming swarm, the silent legions of the dead. Now we must turn our gaze inward into the hidden pathways of the void and confront a horror of a different nature. It is not a threat to our species' existence, but to the very concept of a merciful death. We must speak of the Drukhari, the dark kin of the Aeldari. They are a definitive, sickening answer to a question no sane man would ever ask: what is worse than oblivion? Where their craft-world cousins are defined by their melancholy flight from damnation, the Drukhari have chosen to embrace it. They have looked into the abyss of Slaanesh, the god they helped create, and have decided not to flee, but to bargain. Their souls constantly drain away, leaking into the warp to feed she who thirsts. They have discovered that this slow decay can be arrested, even reversed, by feeding on the intense emotions of others. And no emotion is more intense, more potent than pure, undiluted agony. They have therefore weaponized suffering. They have industrialized torture. Their entire civilization is a monument to cruelty, for cruelty is their only means of survival. They dwell in the dark city of Comera, a sprawling parasitic metropolis hidden within the labyrinthine dimensions of the webway. It is a place that defies sanity. Its spires are built from stolen light and crystallized screams. Its power is drawn from the torment of captured suns. The air itself is thick with the psychic residue of millennia of unparalleled sadism. To breathe in Comera is to taste the fear of 1 billion different souls. This is their domain, a shadow realm, where every depravity is an art form and every citizen is a predator constantly hunting for new sensations to stave off their spiritual decay. They are a species of vampires who feed not on blood, but on pain itself. Their threat to the Imperium is not one of conquest. They have no interest in holding territory. They are pirates, harvesters. Their raids are swift, precise, and executed with the sole purpose of acquiring living captives. They strike from hidden portals without warning, their sleek-bladed craft moving like slivers of midnight. Their weapons are not designed for a clean kill, but for excruciating incapacitation. They fire shards of toxic crystal that rack the body with spasms. They wield whips that send currents of pure agony through the nervous system. Their goal is not to leave a battlefield of the dead, but a battlefield of the screaming and the captured. The strong, the defiant, the healthy, these are their choicest prizes. To be taken alive by the Drukhari is to be condemned to a hell that makes the servitude in a chaos-held demon world seem like a pleasant retirement. You will be taken to their arenas to fight for their amusement, to their slave pits to toil until your body breaks, or worst of all, to the flesh laboratories of the homunculi. There you will become living art, your body reshaped into a testament of agony, kept alive by profane science for centuries, your mind fully intact to appreciate every single moment of a torment that never ever ends. They are not a Xenos threat in the strategic sense. They are a moral threat, a spiritual poison. They are a reminder that the Emperor's peace in death is a gift, and there are monsters in the dark who would do anything to take it from you. I have detailed the great players in this theater of damnation, my lord. The empires, the swarms, the ancient evils that command our full attention and consume the lives of our armies by the billion. But the true sickness of this galaxy is not in these titans. It is in the sheer unending diversity of its horrors. For every major Xenos race that has a name in our lexicons, there are 1,000 lesser nightmares that haunt the dark spaces, each one a unique and monstrous threat to any human foolish enough to cross its path. Our struggle is not against a handful of foes. It is against a galaxy that is fundamentally biologically hostile to our existence. These are the threats that rarely warrant a full crusade, but whose malevolence is no less pure. Consider the Hrood, the so-called chronovores. They are skulking migratory creatures whose very presence warps the flow of time. Their proximity creates an entropic field that causes everything around them to decay and age at a terrifying rate. A guardsman will see his comrades wither into dust and his lasgun rust in his hands in a matter of seconds. To fight them is to battle old age itself, or the sloth, the maggot men of the void. Sentient worm colonies that wear the flayed skins of their victims, they are masters of flesh crafting, turning the dead into grotesque, puppets. They seek not conquest, but to harvest sentient brains which they consume as a delicacy. These are but two entries in a litany of terror so long it would fill the databanks of a titan. The Rakghoul with their cybernetic bodies and unthinking brutality. The Barghezi so murderously violent that even the hive mind gives their home system a wide berth. The psychic phantoms of the enslavers, who can turn a world's entire population into mindless hosts. The list is endless. They are the footnotes in the grand history of our potential extinction, but each footnote is written in the blood of a lost colony or a missing rogue trader fleet. Let this truth be understood: there is no empty space. The Imperium claims 1,000,000 worlds, but we are adrift in a sea of 10 billion more. The void is not a void, it is a hunting ground. Every unexplored nebula, every unclaimed death world, every drifting space hulk is a lair. We are surrounded. We are besieged not just from without by the great fleets, but from within by the things that crawl from the cracks. Every world we seek to colonize may already be the sacred ground of some forgotten horror. Every step we take into the dark is a trespass. The greatest lie the Imperium ever told itself is that the galaxy is ours to claim. The truth is, we are merely the most widespread infestation in a house that is already teeming with monsters. The greatest fallacy in our strategic thinking, my lord, is the assumption that these threats exist in isolation. We create neat files in our data archives, one for the orcs, one for the Tyranids, another for the Necrons, as if they were separate contained problems to be solved one at a time. This is an orderly human approach to a galaxy that is anything but. The terrifying truth is that our foes are not isolated actors. They are part of a single interlocking galactic ecosystem of death. They collide, they conflict, they adapt to one another, and in doing so they create new and more profound horrors. We need look no further for proof than the disastrous Octarius sector, a masterwork of hubris by my late lamented colleague Inquisitor Cryptman. His logic was audacious to take two of our most devastating foes, the Orc Empire of the Overfiend of Octarius and a tendril of Hive Fleet Leviathan, and steer them into a collision course. The theory was that these two rapacious species would annihilate one another in a war of mutual attrition, saving the Imperium countless lives and resources. A beautiful, elegant theory that was catastrophically biblically wrong. The Octarius War did not create a graveyard. It created a forge. It became the galaxy's most efficient crucible for perfecting instruments of death. The Tyranids, feasting on the uniquely resilient and belligerent orcoid biomass, began to evolve larger, more heavily armored and more ferocious warrior forms. The hive mind learned from the orcs' sheer love of battle. In return, the orcs, faced with the ultimate good scrap against an unending tide of monsters, grew to sizes not seen since the age of the Primarchs. Their Wearjage energy intensified, their mechs became more inventive, their desire for battle more focused. Cryptman did not pit two predators against each other to the death. He locked them in a training room and inadvertently became their instructor. The conflict now threatens to spill out of the Octarius sector, unleashing evolved strains of both Tyranid and Orc upon a galaxy that is utterly unprepared to face them. This horrifying synergy is a microcosm of the galactic truth. The threats overlap in a chaotic, unpredictable maelstrom. A Necron dynasty awakens and begins to purge a sector of all life, but their methodical slaughter is interrupted by the sheer anarchic violence of a wage drawn to the energies being released. The Eldari Farseers, seeing this, will subtly manipulate the Orc horde, not to save Imperial lives, but to use the greenskins as a crude battering ram to weaken the Necrons in service of some millennia-long plan. As the Imperial Guard arrives to contain this three-way war, a Genestealer cult on a neighboring world, seeing the sector's military distracted, will begin their day of ascension prematurely. And hovering in the chaos unseen, a Drukhari fleet will dart in harvesting screaming captives from all four sides before vanishing back into the webway. This is the reality of our war. It is not a series of duels. It is a whirlpool of violence where every action has a dozen unforeseen consequences, and every enemy can inadvertently become the tool of another. They are not playing separate games on the same board. They are all part of the same grand, terrible symphony, and its final note will be the silence of our extinction. And so I return to your original command, my Lord Inquisitor, to rank them, to create a neat hierarchy of our doom. After all I have witnessed, all the data I have compiled, I must tell you that the act itself is a form of madness. It is like asking a drowning man to rank the individual drops of water in the ocean that consumes him. Each threat is absolute in its own fashion. Each offers a unique and perfect damnation. To rank them is to misunderstand them. The Tau are not a military power to be measured in fleets, but a single matchstick of an idea that, if left unchecked, could ignite the oppressed masses of an entire segmentum into an inferno of rebellion. The Eldari are cosmic puppeteers, but to focus on the puppet is to miss the strings. We will never truly know if the hand guiding them is their own, or that of fate itself. The Drukhari do not even belong on a strategic chart. They are a moral lesson, a visceral reminder that the clean death offered by our other foes can be a profound mercy. And the Orcs, they are the savage, idiotic laughter of the galaxy itself. They are not a problem to be solved, but a fundamental condition of a universe built on conflict. They are the war that will remain when all warriors have fallen. But a verdict was demanded, and a verdict I shall give. If we are to speak of a greatest threat, we must speak in the currency of finality. We must ask which of these horrors has both the means and the motive to bring about the utter and total extinction of mankind and all other life as we know it. By that terrible metric, two and only two contenders stand above all others. They are the two true faces of annihilation, the two great beasts that gnaw upon the roots of the world. On one side we have the Tyrannid. They are the principle of life taken to its most obscene and ravenous conclusion. They are biology untethered from reason, a cancerous galactic-scale organism driven by a single pure imperative: consume, replicate, evolve. They are the absolute, unrestrained hunger of the swarm. They offer a hot, screaming biological oblivion. They will devour us, absorb our genetic legacy into their own, and use our substance to fuel their endless journey into the dark, leaving a silent, scoured rock where our world once stood. They are the ultimate horror of the feast. On the other side we have the Necron. They are the principle of death given perfect technological form. They are order untethered from soul, a silent, eternal empire driven by a single, cold, imperative, pacify, cleanse command. They are the absolute, passionless stillness of the machine. They offer a cold, silent, mechanical oblivion. They will dismantle us, erase our chaotic existence from the universal equation, and impose a perfect, sterile stasis upon a galaxy they see as flawed and noisy. They are the ultimate horror of the tomb. These are the two true annihilators. One is a tidal wave of flesh, the other a glacier of steel. One is the ultimate expression of biological imperatives, the other the ultimate victory of physical law over the chaos of life. They are two sides of the same apocalyptic coin. To ask which is the greater threat is to ask if it is worse to burn or to freeze. The end result is identical, an empire of man that is no more. My lord, I have laid before you the litany of our doom, a catalogue of the claws and teeth and whispered lies that seek to tear us down. I have weighed the flesh tide against the metal tide. I have measured the savage laugh against the siren song of false hope. I have done as you commanded, and in the end I have come to realize the utter folly of the task. We have been asking the wrong question. We ask who is the greatest threat when we should be asking, what is the nature of the sea in which we are drowning? The Imperium of man is a fortress built on a shoreline at the edge of a world ocean. For 10 millennia we have been frantically building our walls higher, cementing them with the bones of our martyrs and the mortar of our faith. But the tide has been rising. Now the waves crash against the very ramparts of holy terror. What I have described in this report, the orcs, the Eldari, the Tau, the Drukhari, they are but the smaller waves, the constant churning surf that erodes our foundations and wears down our resolve. They are the 1,000 leaks that have sprung in our dike, each one demanding our desperate attention. We plug one with the lives of a guard regiment, another with the sacrifice of a space marine chapter, a third with the soul-crushing compromise of an inquisitor. We are the man with his fingers in the crumbling wall, believing that our frantic, desperate effort is holding back the sea. We are fools, because out in the deep 2 tsunamis are rising, the Tyrannid and the Necron. They are the true storm, the final wave that will not just breach our walls, but erase the very shoreline on which they are built. Every victory we claim against the lesser horrors is just a moment's respite. Every hero who dies is just another grain of sand washed away. Every fortress that holds is a temporary island that will inevitably be swallowed by the rising tide. The wall is failing. The sea is coming. And we have run out of fingers to plug the leaks. But even this vision of the final wave is a comforting lie. It presumes that the wave is the enemy. It is not. The true threat, the single greatest Xenos threat to the Imperium of man, is not a species. It is a fact. The simple, soul-destroying, blasphemous fact of their existence. Our entire culture, the bedrock of the Imperial Creed, is founded upon the premise of humanity's manifest destiny. That the galaxy is ours by divine right. That we are the sole inheritors of creation, the favored children of the Emperor. For millennia, this belief has been our shield and our sword. But it is a lie. The ultimate Xenos threat is the truth that we are not special, that we are not chosen, that we are a cosmic accident, a brief and violent spark in a galaxy that has been owned and ruled by older, greater, and more terrible things than we can possibly imagine. The existence of the Eldari proves we are not the first. The existence of the Necrons proves we are not the strongest. The existence of the Tyrannids proves we are not the ultimate life form. Every alien we encounter is another piece of evidence damning us to insignificance. Our war is not against a foe. Our war is against the fundamental nature of the universe. It is a war against the truth. And this is the final inarguable verdict of the Ordo Xenos. This war cannot be won. It can only be fought. And in the fighting we are doomed to become the very thing we despise. To hold back the tide, we must be as ruthless as the Necrons, as single-minded as the Tyrannids, as fanatical as the followers of the Tauva, as willing to sacrifice our own as the Eldari. To fight the endless Warg, we must embrace a cult of war every bit as total. To survive the horrors of this galaxy, we must excise our own humanity. We hollow ourselves out, becoming shells of dogma and fury, all in the name of self-preservation. And one day we will look upon our works, upon the galaxy of corpses we have created to purchase our survival, and we will no longer be able to tell the difference between the monster and its reflection. My report is concluded. There is nothing more to say. We will fight until the last bastion falls, until the last shell is spent, until the last man draws his final defiant breath. It is our curse. It is our glory. It is all we have left. The Emperor protects, but the roaring sea will never rest.